amazing time because we are having an amazing time over here in the DMV. It's a little sunny. It was raining yesterday, but we thank God for the rain and the sun because it keeps everything looking nice and dandy. Hello, my warriors. Evie warriors, how are you doing? Warrior besties, how are you doing? I hope you're doing amazing and you're fighting with that empowered value to empower value everywhere you go. Oh my goodness. Okay, today our topic is scaling without losing the thread. And I hope everyone is checking their blogs every Friday mornings at 8 a.m. because we're there with our topic, and that's the topic for this week. And if you don't see it there, it's going to be there shortly. We always try to give ourselves a little situation so we can make sure that we let you know that sometimes we do make a little mistake, but we're coming with it. Okay, scaling without losing the thread. And that everybody's talking about scaling. Everybody's talking about scaling this. We're scaling our businesses so that we don't have to work for the rest of our life. We'll be scaling it and will need us to be there. So even when we're gone, our companies will still be making money. Our families will still be doing great things. Everything we have is a legacy of greatness in the earth. And we hear about that, but a lot of times we don't understand that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work because you have to put the right things in place. You have to write the right situations in place. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to make sure we're not scaling and growing, but losing our companies. We've heard about companies in the media where that as a small business owner, that kind of makes me a little pull back sometimes, but I'm not going to be scared because God said he's not giving me the spirit of fear. But they're making multi-millions of dollars, and you hear them they have to declare bankruptcy. They have to do all these different things. They have to restructure their whole companies because something happened and they didn't catch themselves in the spending and the saving phase or whatever you do to make sure that everything's balanced. And they end up having to do a bankruptcy to bring everything back together and restructure so they wouldn't go totally under. And a lot of times we don't understand what that is. We just think we want to scale. You're making money. You want to scale. And it sounds good. And it is good. The whole thing is you just got to make sure you put the right foundation in place to make sure that you come out on top with that. Like the Rockefellers, where to this day, there's still how many millionaires in their family because they did something and put a foundation in place to make sure that nobody spent all the money. And that's what we need to do with our companies as well. And so today, that's what we're going to talk about. If you listen to the podcast that was attached to that, amazing. Okay, they always do a good job. And they just broke it down as to sometimes we need to stop and check things. You may not want to go multi companies right away. You need to start with one and grow into it and grow into it. And sometimes we don't do that because we want to grow too fast. But that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? And we're going to have the conversation. Join us. Again, remember, Fava Festival is coming, FF26, September 10th, 12th, and 13th, with a retreat that's optional afterwards. It's going to be a little extra, of course, but if you could check out the website, favorofagreatgod.com, go to the Fava Festival page, and you will see how you can purchase your tickets, all the different things. Well, the registration, we always say it, registration, so you can purchase and join us in Madrid and Greece this year. And we really love to enjoy because this year is going to be a lot different. We're going to gather our founders together, our companies together, our entrepreneurs, artists, whoever you are, and you're doing something, we want to bring you together with all your minds and all your money and everything you have and all your skills so we can come together and create something that will go past us. That's what we want. That's a scaling situation that even after we're gone, people will be saved and delivered from human trafficking, will be put on a trajectory to greatness, even if they've been brought down so low. Yeah, and that's the key to it. And so that we want to keep that going. So I'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but FF26 is fast approaching. So join us. Okay. But today, okay, multi-entity growth. And in our little company, we have multi entities, but we did it it didn't even occur that we were doing it. Okay. For us here, this whole little company, small as it is, it's still growing. Thank you, God. It started because if anyone doesn't know, I sing and I write. I'm a songwriter and a singer, and that's something that's in extension to my finance degree and my finance situation, my finance degree and my psychology degree and that career. That's an extension of me. So that's part of me. And so we wrote the album, the first album. It's still out there somewhere, but it's there, and we wrote it. And we put it up, but we had a plan to publish it. And I'm like, I didn't have all the thousands and millions of dollars that everybody else has. So we did an independent situation. thus Fog Publishing. Right. If you look at our, I think we still at Fog or Fava one. I think it's Fog Publishing. We lifted it Fog Publishing. So we created a publishing company to put that album out. And that was really good for us. Okay. So that's where we started. At the same time, I like writing. We did a little mini magazine and different things we had. So that's how we started. And I did that while I was working on my other job. I didn't leave work. I just recently went into this full time. So we were still working. And so we did that. So that's what happened. So it's like everything we did as a multi entity company, and we call the whole group Fava Group. I never went into an intention like I'm going to start this and that. It's always something out of a need. So we needed to publish. We didn't have the monies to go to a big time publisher. We did it on our own, independent. Then I wrote a book, independent publishing again. Then we went from that. And because I have the finance and the psychology background, we went into consulting and then put it all together, business consulting. So that just came out of that. And then what else? We were trying to put on an event. We recognized that we may need to have beverages and food or whatever. Didn't want to go buy everything from a store or a caterer. That's another set of money. So we created Fava a la carte, where we created our light refreshments and drinks. And then now we have Swordfish that came out of that. So that's an entity. So it's like everything is intertwined into everything. Like when we do one, like the Fava Festival, when we do FF26, everything is under that. We have the drinks covered. We have to do our merch. We create our merch ourselves. Thus, we have a Favsha group, which is our fashion what's it, the part of fashion company under the Fava group, and we produce our own things. So it's everything fits. It's like for us, it's not like going over here and doing this. Going over there and doing this or whatever. Everything fits. So that's why we became a multi-entity. For you to do multi-entity, I would advise that you don't, and most people do as well, don't start that right away if you can't do it. And make sure if you do it, make sure it fits so you don't have to be spreading yourself all over the place. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the things that is being advised, and we advise as well. If you're going to do that, make sure you think about it and think about, does it work for you? What is it adding to you? And then you can go out into these different fields, because like we were discussing, even in this whole blog Friday and even today, is if you don't do it right and it doesn't make sense, it could pull away at who you are. It could pull away at your identity. It could pull away at your resources, because you haven't put something in place to make sure that works. And for us, we're still small. The bigger you get, you're going to need more people to do all that, because you can't do 10 things at once. You need to have the right, each company has its own staff and employee and management and everything to handle it. And then you come under one holding company or one group that looks over everything and keeps it together legally and financially. And then they all have to make sure you have a core of value, like our values, empowered value, empowering value. That core now determines what everybody else does. And you have to make sure you put that in writing and you're clear about everything. Okay. And that's something that works for us. Now, when you're looking at this, we have something, I'm going to read some of the things that we have on there, which is really, really good to look at. Growing from a single company into a family of legal entities is a powerful lever for market research, risk management, tax optimization, and strategic focus. But with that power comes a central danger: losing the thread. The thread is a coherent strategy, culture, customer experience, and operational control that made growth possible in the first place. You have to make sure all the companies are coherent. They work together. They have the same culture, the same values, the same policy. You have to make sure the customer experience goes all around. Every company, everybody that goes to them have the same experience. They don't come back with one saying that's a crazy company. They don't treat us nice over there. They don't do that. So you have to have central policies that work for every entity in that group. Very important. If you're like me and I go to some stores, and I've been talking about it lately, I go to some stores especially after COVID, and the customer experience is horrible. I mean, even talking to people on the phones, you can't get someone to talk to you. When they do, they don't know what they're talking about. It's just crazy. And especially now when we're doing I think we're working on having our own AI assistant, whatever. When you're working on those different things, make sure you put it in place so it sounds like you. It sounds like your company as far as the values, how you talk to people, being appreciating your customers, thank you, happy to help, that kind of thing. You want to have that, and it has to go through all your entities, because your customer experience is what's going to keep you. Because people are going to say, I had this experience there, and they're going to talk to people and tell people, and you want that to be something that translates well all across the board. Very important. Okay. This guide outlines practical structures, governance, and playbook elements leaders need to scale across multiple entities while preserving strategic integrity and operational agility. Very important. Okay. Why multi? And I'm just going to go through everything. If you go on the Fava conversation and look at the whole blog, you'll see all these things written out right there, typed out, whatever. So you can go through it while you listen to the podcast or while you listen to us right now. While multi-entity structures are used, why multi-entity structures are used? One, risk isolation. Separate liability exposure across businesses, projects, or geographies. You don't want to have, some companies have different things. You want to make sure that every company it's separate, so that if one company has a bad situation or they give a bad experience, it doesn't affect the others. So that's one of the reasons for having multiple and separating them. Regulatory and tax alignment, taxes as well. You don't want one company causing a problem for the other company. If they're separate, then it's good for you, and it's good for you too as the owner. Okay, because then you don't get your personal wealth, or your personal, like your home and your entity, whatever you have under your personal, your family stuff, won't get affected by the companies. So that protects you well, tax wise, legal wise, and every wise. Okay, brand and product clarity, house distinct markets, business models, or customer segments. So if you have a fashion, that's be different from the food and that kind of stuff. You want it to be separate. Okay. M&A and capital flexibility. Make acquisitions, joint ventures, and investments clean and compartmentalized. Each company, if you acquire anything, whether you buy equipment or buy property or whatever, it's separate from the others. So that's a protection for each of your company and everything you do, and you yourself and your private situation. Incentive design. Align equity, compensation, and KPIs by entity. Okay, so you want each entity to have their own identity, yet they have to be under one umbrella of the same culture. Okay, so your values have to play in there, and you have to work with your boards and whoever to structure the whole situation very carefully. Make sure it has your heart, so that when you, in the end, when you're scaling, you practically, the owner does not necessarily have to be there day to day. So the culture you establish and the foundation should run through the entire company, even if you're not going to be there day to day, or you may not even be around. You may have passed on, but that culture stays with the company in its policies, in its constitution, in its legalities, and all these different things. So people know what you expect and know what you want to come out of your company, and you protect that. Because some people can come in there, take over, even if they're management or whatever, and bring in some crazy stuff. And then people start leaving, customers start leaving, because they're like, this is not what we signed up for. And especially when it comes with moralities and how they do things. Some people start coming with crooked situations and all type of stuff that causes a liability to the company and the name and the brand. And that's when you start having problems. So that's why it's very important to strategize that with the right people and put it in writing and sign it and all that good stuff, so that it lasts for generations. That's what the whole goal is. Okay. Common threads to the thread. Fragmented strategy. Entities drift from corporate objectives or pursue conflicting markets. Right there, we're just talking about that. Cultural dilution. Distinct teams develop misaligned norms and customer promises. Okay, start acting, doing all kind of stuff, bringing all kind of people in, doing different things, promising things that are not in alignment with what the company stands for. And then that's when you start having the falling out with your customer, then start losing money. Very important. Operational redundancy. Multiple back office teams increase cost and error risk. So the back office is doing some stuff, and it's not, there's the accountability that was set up to make sure that doesn't happen either falls through. And now you start having a liability where now you have to declare bankruptcy or whatever because you have spent more than you were supposed to. And nobody was watching over that to make sure that didn't happen. Data and process divergence. Incompatible systems inhibit transparency and scale. Incompatible systems inhibit transparency and scale. You have things coming in that's not working with what you set up. And so now you don't have a transparency. So now they have to cover things up and it's not scaling back. And a lot of things happen. It's not what it was supposed to be. Governance paralysis. Too many approvals or unclear authority slows decisions. Too many approvals or unclear authority slows decisions. You cannot approve everything. Take your time to think about it. Take your time to talk to the right people. In the what the Bible says in the oh my God in the presence of counsel is safety. In the presence of many counselors, I can't remember how it's worded, but anyway, in the presence of many counselors is safety. In other words, find counselors, talk to people, and that's when you talk to people and you get the idea. You can get. Sometimes it's better to do that than just go on your own. Safety is in the presence of counselors. Good counselors, of course. Anyway, customer confusion. Deferring brand architectures create mixed messages and friction. If we've architected the building that we have, the framework that we want to have for the company, and we have all the policies in place and the culture in place, you come to the crazy situation, makes everybody think, oh, wait a minute, I thought the company was about this. Especially if you're coming from a faith background like myself. When you believe something and it goes through everything you do, something that doesn't look like what you believe or what people know you stand for starts making people say, well, what is this? This don't look like them, especially if it's a bad situation. And we've heard about those in the media. Okay. And it's like, whoa. And then people will run from you like a plague. Be very careful with those things. Okay. And then it gives some principles to preserve coherence while scaling. 1, define the single North Star and entity roles. North Star, a concise, measurable strategic purpose that guides investment and trade-offs. Again, that measurable strategic, your purpose. Very important. Get your purpose. Empowering ours is empowering value, empowered value, empowering value, and everything we does have to have that. If it doesn't empower value, it will not be under our brand. It cannot be under the Fava Group because we don't do non-empowerment. Like that doesn't make sense to us. Okay. So you have to get that clear and understand what that looks like. Entity roles. For each legal entity, define its mission, customer scope, revenue model, and limits, what it must not do. This makes autonomy accountable, not anarchic. Okay. Everything, when you put it down, the mission, the customer scope, the revenue model, and limits, now you've set up something where everything's accountable. And it's not just there like an anarchy. No, it has to be accountable to each other. That's why you have that main, like our main thing is a Fava Group. So every entity has to be accountable to that Fava Group and what it stands for. And then we have the trust and everything's under the trust. So you have to have those things in place to make sure that no one company goes rogue and does crazy with your name and your brand. Adopt a core services center plus lightweight local units. Core services, centralized finance, legal, HR, IT, and shared data platforms to reduce duplication and maintain standards. So you have a core thing. Everything comes out of like our group, your holding company, whatever. And it has to be core for your finance, your legal, everything. And then the companies go through that. That has to be the core thing, that also like a constitution that makes the regulations or the rules or whatever for all the different entities. Local units empower entities to own product market fit, customer relationships, and tactical execution. So you give some empowerment to the individual units. So they have their own management staff, they have their regular staff, they have all these different things, they have their software, they have they're managing everything. Okay, you give them some power, but it has to, again, have that parent company to keep everything together. Balance, keep core services nimble and customer focused. Avoid central bureaucracy that stifles local speed. So although you have that parent company that's managing that looking over everything, you still have to make sure it gives them some breathing room. So they can do stuff. They don't have to call management every like head office every time to get something done. So because that can slow everything down. So you have to put something in place where, although we're still the head office is still oversteering everything, it still gives the little entities the breathing room to do stuff to a certain extent, and it gives them the limit and the boundaries to make sure that doesn't go crazy. Okay, very very important. Number three, use a clear governance matrix, decision rights, escalation paths, review cadence. Okay, define for escalation, define when issues move from entity leadership to group governance and to the board. These are things you have to define. Decision, explicitly allocate RACI style responsibilities, who's responsible, accountable, consulted, informed for major decisions. So you have to make those things. This person can do this person cannot do this. All these have to be placed in your policy so that they know we have this much leeway, but we can't go there. And you have the right people in place within each entity, and then the people in place in the parent company to make sure that everything works smoothly. Okay, and clarification is important too, and communication. When people come into work for you, they have to know this is what's going on. This is where this is who you talk to. This is who you don't talk to, and so everybody should know what's going on. Standardized data and integration patterns, single source of truth, master data definitions to enable consolidated reporting, customers, products, financial chart of accounts. You have to have a master data, a playbook or whatever, where everything is done. You see everything, and then you have everything breaking out of that. API first architecture, integrate entity systems via modular API or standardized connectors to allow differentiation without data silos. Data governance, enforce roles, quality checks, and security policies centrally. Provide analytics template, analytics, provide analytics templates to local teams. So you have to be checking the data, see what's going on with each company, have somebody looking at it, and then the whole parent company looks at all the companies, and then you talk so you can see what's going on within, and you can govern that and make the decisions. I just heard somebody talking about that, where he said every month, I guess he has multiple companies or firms or whatever, every month he has to see the numbers for each one, and then he goes to the leader of each department or company or whatever, and he tells them to go through each. He has like a grading system for each I guess for each employee, whatever, and he tells them go through each employee and grade them based on this scale. And the ones that are the top ones, you keep. The ones that are the, like you said, the C level or whatever, the C level, you have to look at them and see if you want to keep them and if they're valuable to the company. And if you can't, then you have to let them go because they will bring down the company. Now that's a little tough to hear because nobody wants to be let go. If you've ever been let go, it's not a good feeling. But you have to. But one thing he even said was that he allowed them to go and look for other jobs while they were there. Because he said it's quicker to get another job. Why didn't another job or something like that? So I thought that was different, but that's what he said. It works for him. And so whatever it is that you can create that can help you maintain that environment of productivity, of excellence, then you do that so it can work for you and your company can have longevity. Okay, design a coherent brand architecture, brand taxonomy, decide corporate endorsed or independent brand approaches with clear rules for naming, visual identity, and customer facing messaging. So you have to get that from the parent company. You get what you want to use, what's the logo, what's the how you want the company to look. Is it the bright companies, all these different, what kind of culture do you want it to be? So you do that from the head office and then bring that into your solidify that, and then each entity now knows what they're supposed to do. Journey alignment, map customer journeys across entities and remove frictions. Billing, support, onboarding. Map customer journeys across entities and remove friction. I would just talk about the frictions. In your billing department, your support, and your onboarding. So you figure out what works and what doesn't work. And if you do a review like every month or every year, it will help you catch things that may not be going quite well. So you're not going to have them going on for a long, long time. And then you're like, well, what happened here? How didn't we catch this? So if you do the reviews and the analysis, I would think every month at least, especially the bigger you are, probably the more you need to do that, and have each company or each entity or each department, whatever it is you have, go through and analyze what's going on and analyze the people in the company and what's going on and see what works and what doesn't work and identify frictions. Then you can eliminate things early before they cause a problem. Very important to determine and nip in the bud real quickly. Okay, trust continuity. Maintain consistent service level expectations and escalation points, even if the legal entity differs. You have to have a continuity of trust, especially among your leaders. Okay, number 6, we need to hurry up here because we don't have time. Oh, it's almost done. Align incentives and talent mobility. Align incentives and talent mobility. Compensation frameworks. Use mix of entity level incentives and group level equity. Performance bonuses to encourage both local growth and contribution to group outcomes. Talent pathways. Make cross-entity moves easy. Rotate leaders across businesses to share best practices and embed culture. We had that at one of the places I worked, and it worked so well. Have everybody learn each other's role and stay in it for like a day or two, understand it. Because the thing about that, it helps you understand each other. If you have something that you could add to it to improve the situation, that could work as well. But they wouldn't know if you don't go in there and share it with them. So you cross culture, it helps a lot too. And then the one where it helps, especially where we were, is that sometimes you have people that have to leave the company, whether they leave or they get laid off or fired, whatever, and they leave, and they can't. It's a short notice, so you can't find somebody to replace them. So that entity is empty, like we were talking about last week, and somebody has to fill it in because the job is very important. You cannot just stay empty because the work won't get done. And so it's very important if you have that cross culture, that cross entity culture, whatever, I don't know what you call that. Yeah. Then somebody can fit in because they've already practiced in that role and they can now jump in and fit in until you find somebody. So it's that cross entity works. Okay. And if you do it well anyway. Some people don't like to do it, but I think it works well because now everybody knows everybody's role. They can contribute to it. They can help them with it. If something happens, somebody gets sick, you can have somebody fill in without having to go have everything drop and everybody's being in an alarming situation. So that works very well. If it's done well, okay? Got to say that. Leadership standards. A shared leadership competency framework preserves culture and decision quality as teams expand. So a shared leadership competence, have the leaders understand what each other does. Okay, so they can help with each other. And if their one department is not doing well, they can come in and see. And it just helps because it builds coherence. It builds like a culture of togetherness in the company where everybody's not like, well, my department's good and yours not good. You know, it's like we all have to work together to get this going. And if one of us falls down, there's going to be a problem. So we all need to work together to make sure this is a successful company so that we can benefit and our customers can benefit. Again, it's about the impact. Keep capital strategy explicit. Funding rules. Define when entities should be self-sustaining, when to draw from group capital, and criteria for new investments. That's how you understand how to spend that money. Return expectations. Set expected return thresholds and hold entities to transparent KPIs, cash burn, contribution, margin, ROI. So understand what are you expecting from your return on your investments. Every company needs to know